Elisa Lam.
For Elisa Lam, what?
Elisa Lam, right?
Elisa Lam.
At 21 years old, Elisa Lam finally convinced her parents to let her travel alone. It wasn't easy. Her family was strict, traditional, and cautious, but Elisa had been fighting the feeling of being trapped for too long. She needed a trip that was hers and hers alone. Her parents, reluctant but loving, agreed to one condition. Elisa had to call home every single night to check in. And at first, she did exactly that. She called from Los Angeles, laughing about the places she visited, excited about what came next. She told them about the bustling streets, the old hotel she was staying at, and her plans to move on to Santa Cruz after a few days. Her voice was light, almost free. For the first time, Elisa was out in the world on her own, and she sounded happy. Then the calls stopped. At first, her parents tried to stay calm. Maybe she lost her phone. Maybe she got busy. Maybe she just forgot. But hours turned into a day, and a day turned into two. Elisa wasn't answering her phone. She wasn't replying to texts. She wasn't online. When they called the Cecil Hotel to check, the staff told them something that made the blood drain from their faces. Elisa Lam had never checked out. Her room was still registered in her name. She hadn't moved on to Santa Cruz. She hadn't gone anywhere at all. When officers arrived at the Cecil Hotel, they expected the usual missing persons case, a runaway, a young traveler who got distracted, maybe even someone who simply decided to disappear. But Elisa's room told a different story. Her suitcase was there, zipped neatly at the corner of the bed. Her clothes folded inside. Her toiletries lined up carefully in the bathroom. Her laptop, her wallet, her identification, everything exactly where it should have been. As if she had just stepped out for a moment. The staff said they hadn't seen anything strange. Guests reported nothing unusual. Cameras outside her door showed no signs of anyone suspicious. It didn't make sense. Missing persons don't usually vanish without a single trace. Still, police worked through the hotel floor by floor, room by room. They searched the lobby, the stairwells, the back exits, the alleys outside. They brought in dogs to sniff every hallway, every rooftop. No scent trail. No witnesses. No signs of a struggle. Elisa Lam had simply vanished, right in the middle of downtown Los Angeles, inside a hotel full of people, without anyone noticing a thing. But maybe the real mystery didn't start when Elisa disappeared. Maybe it started the day she first walked into the Cecil Hotel, a building with a past that should have warned her to run.
More relevant to Lam's case is why was she staying in a hotel in such a dodgy part of LA? Here in Vancouver, it was difficult to find anyone who knew her well. No one could explain why she went on a California holiday by herself.
When Elisa Lam arrived in Los Angeles, she picked the Cecil Hotel simply because it was affordable. She had no idea what kind of place she was stepping into. The Cecil wasn't just another old downtown building with cheap rooms. It carried a history so dark that even locals crossed the street to avoid it. Over the decades, it earned the nickname the Suicide Hotel, after a staggering number of guests threw themselves from its windows. Some died instantly on the sidewalks below. Others took people with them, strangers who just happened to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. Inside its walls, the hotel had hosted some of the most terrifying figures in American crime history.
Thanks mostly to the infamous Night Stalker serial killer Richard Ramirez, who killed 14 people.
And during his spree, when he was doing a lot of home invasions for satanic purposes, he was actually staying as a resident of the Cecil up on the 14th floor.
Serial killers like Richard Ramirez, the infamous Night Stalker, once lived there while committing his murders across Los Angeles. Austrian killer Jack Unterweger, pretending to be a reformed man, also chose Cecil as his base while targeting women. Murders, overdoses, rapes, and unexplained disappearances stacked up over the years until the hotel's name was almost a whispered curse. But Elisa, young and full of dreams, had no way of knowing that she was walking into one of the most haunted buildings in the city. At first,
she was very outgoing, very lively, very friendly.
Elisa wasn't even staying alone. She had booked a shared room to save money, agreeing to bunk with strangers as part of the hotel's low-budget setup. But the arrangement didn't last long. Within just a few days, her roommates went to the front desk and demanded that Elisa be moved out. They described her behavior as unsettling, although no one gave many details about what exactly she had done. Management quickly relocated her to a private room, isolating her on her own. It might have seemed like a small change at the time, just a guest swap, a minor inconvenience. But in hindsight, it felt like the first crack in a much bigger collapse. Later reports mentioned strange notes found taped to Elisa's walls, scribbled messages like "go away" and "get out" left behind in a room that was supposed to be her safe place. 2 weeks passed with no sign of Elisa Lam. Then, on February 14, the LAPD made a bold move. They released a short, silent clip of security footage from one of the hotel's elevators.
Surveillance video shows her acting oddly inside the hotel elevator as if she's hiding from someone.
What was meant to help find Elisa only deepened the mystery. The video showed Elisa stepping into the elevator, alone. She presses several buttons in quick succession, as if trying to get the elevator moving. Then she moves into the corner, standing stiffly like she's hiding from someone. Seconds tick by. The doors refuse to close. Elisa peeks her head out cautiously, looks both ways down the hallway, then jumps back inside. She waves her arms in strange, jerky motions, as if speaking to someone the camera can't see. She steps outside the elevator again, then and again, as if she can't decide whether it's safer inside or out. And then, she's gone.
Last footage of her in the hotel elevator is perplexing. Why did she press all the buttons? Was she talking to someone? Was she trying to hide? Coroner Ed Winters says perhaps the autopsy will provide.
She vanishes from the frame, and the elevator finally closes as if nothing ever happened. The footage went viral almost immediately. To this day, thousands of people have picked it apart frame by frame, trying to answer the one question that hangs heavy over the whole case: what was Elisa Lam running from? While the world watched the footage in horror, life inside the Cecil Hotel carried on. Guests were still checking in, still using the hotel showers, still brushing their teeth with tap water, but complaints were piling up. Some guests said the water pressure was almost gone. Others said the water looked dark, even black, and had a sickening taste. Maintenance worker Santiago Lopez was sent to figure out what was wrong. Carrying his tools to the roof, he opened the hatch of one of the hotel's massive water tanks. What he found ended any doubts that something terrible had happened.
After the gruesome discovery of a woman's body inside one of the rooftop tanks that may have been there for as long as 2.5 weeks.
Floating inside, bloated and decomposing, was the body of Elisa Lam. For nearly 3 weeks, the guests of the Cecil Hotel had been drinking, cooking, and bathing in the contaminated water from that very tank. The discovery was horrifying, not just because Elisa had been found, but because of how she had been hidden in plain sight all along, just above their heads.
Inside the tank, 21-year-old Elisa Lam, the tourist from Vancouver, Canada, arrived in Los Angeles on January 26.
The discovery of Elisa's body should have brought answers. Instead, it only raised more questions. The autopsy ruled her death as an accidental drowning. There were no signs of trauma. No bruises. No cuts. No evidence that Elisa had been attacked or restrained. It sounded simple on paper, but simple never fit the way she had disappeared. Investigators noted something even stranger: her clothes weren't on her body.
It stretches believability that a young Canadian tourist could accidentally end up dead inside a water tank at the top of an LA hotel, and yet very little makes sense about the strange disappearance and death of Elisa Lam.
They were found floating separately inside the tank, soaked and heavy. No explanation was given for why she would have undressed, or why her clothes were later found like discarded debris around her. Even getting to the tank itself didn't make sense. The hotel's rooftop doors were locked, alarmed, and supposed to be accessible only to staff with keys or passcodes. There were no ladders leading into the tanks either, making the idea that Elisa climbed in herself hard to believe.
Either she met with foul play, or somehow the 21-year-old would have had to have gotten through locked doors onto the roof, avoided tripping an alarm, and then climbed up inside the water tank. The hotel itself has not made a statement, but it did send guests this letter, telling them to check out.
During the initial search, police dogs had sniffed every hallway and even reached the roof, but they found no trace of her scent. Despite all of this, the LAPD closed the case. No foul play. No murder. No one else was involved. But the public wasn't buying it. Instead of quieting the storm, closing the case only fueled it. Almost immediately, theories began to spread like wildfire. Some believed Elisa had been murdered, and not by a random guest, but by someone who knew the hotel inside and out. Maybe even an employee. The strange way the elevator acted, the way its doors refused to close no matter how many buttons Elisa pressed, seemed too suspicious. Elevators don't behave like that unless someone is controlling them. And then there was the footage itself. Parts of the recording appeared to skip, as if sections had been deliberately edited out. If someone wanted to erase what really happened, they had done a chillingly good job. Other theories suggested something even darker. Some said the Cecil Hotel, soaked in decades of death and violence, had a pull, a supernatural grip that Elisa couldn't escape. They pointed to the way her behavior matched the so-called elevator game, a ritualistic urban legend that supposedly opens a portal to another world. Maybe she was playing it. Maybe something found her instead. There were those who thought the explanation was simpler but no less tragic. Elisa was struggling with her bipolar disorder. Her toxicology reports showed she hadn't been taking her medications properly. Hallucinations, delusions, a complete break from reality could explain her frantic movements, her fear, her final moments. And then there was the coincidence that left even the most rational people unsettled. Around the same time Elisa disappeared, a deadly outbreak of tuberculosis spread through the homeless population living around the Cecil Hotel. The name of the test used to diagnose it? Lam Elisa. It was real. Medical records confirmed it. Whether it was pure coincidence or something stranger, no one could explain how a tuberculosis test created years before could carry Elisa's exact name. By now, there were too many theories, too many possibilities, and no one could agree where the truth ended and fear began. Elisa's death didn't just close a chapter at the Cecil Hotel. It opened a legend. Her story inspired documentaries, endless YouTube videos, podcasts, Reddit threads that refused to let go. In 2021, Netflix released Crime Scene: The Vanishing at the Cecil Hotel, dragging millions of viewers back into the case. The Cecil itself tried desperately to rebrand, changing its name to Stay on Main, hoping the ghosts of its past would stay buried. But Elisa's story became a part of the hotel's DNA, and part of internet history. Even today, years later, people still argue over what really happened that night. Whether it was foul play, a tragic accident, or something none of us will ever understand, one thing is certain: Elisa Lam remains one of the most haunting mysteries of our time.